7.6 goes over factoring when you have an a other than 1. So yesterday in section 7.5, we went over when a was equal to 1. The section that we're doing today, the 7.6, a is not going to be 1. So there's two things that you can do with these. First thing you want to look at is there a greatest common factor that you can factor out? If so, factor out the greatest common factor, then continue to factor that trinomial. If we look at example 1a, we have 5x squared plus 15x plus 10. Each of these terms are divisible by 5, so we'll start this one by factoring out the 5. We're going to have 5 times x squared plus 3x plus 2. From here, you want to look at that 2 and ask yourself, can I find the factors of 2 that add up to be a positive 3? 1 and 2 are our factors. If we added the 1 and the 2, we get 3, which is what we're looking for. So this is going to factor out to be 5 times x plus 1 times x plus 2. If you started by factoring out your greatest common factor, it has to stay with your answer. You can't just forget about it. It doesn't just disappear. You have to include it with your answer. For example B, we have 8x squared minus 56x plus 48. So again, we want to look to see if we have a greatest common factor that we can factor out. We do, which it is 8, so we would factor out an 8 from this to start with. So we're going to factor out that 8, so that's going to go out front. What's left over goes into the parentheses. So 8 factors out, the x squared is in, minus 7x plus 6. If we are finding the factors of a positive 6 that add up to be a negative 7, we're going to have negative 1 and negative 7. Negative 1 and negative 6, which gives us negative 7. We have that negative 7 that we're looking for, so this is going to factor out to be 8 times x minus 1 times x minus 6. With example 2, we're going to be looking at trinomials that are in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c when a and c are both positive. For example 2a, we have 4x squared plus 13x plus 3. I ask myself first, can I factor out a greatest common factor? I cannot, so I'm going to multiply my first and my last terms. When I multiply these terms, it's only my a and my c value that I'm multiplying. So with that a, it's just the 4, not the 4x squared. So I'm going to take a, which is 4, multiply it by 3, which is my c, we get 12. This number, this 12, is the number I'm going to find my factors of that add up to be my middle term, that 13. So if I find the factors of 12 that add up to be positive 13, I have 1 and 12, which gives us a positive 13. From here, I'm going to attach an x to both the 1 and the 12 and replace the 13x with that. So this is going to turn into 4x squared plus x plus 12x plus 3. From here, our next step is to factor by grouping because there's 4 terms. When we factor by grouping, we're going to put a set of parentheses around the first 2 terms. We're also going to put a set of parentheses around the last 2 terms. When we do this, we are going to factor out the greatest common factor from each set of parentheses. So the 4x squared plus x, we can factor out that greatest common factor, which is x. From the 12x and the 3, we can factor out the greatest common factor, which is 3. When we factor these terms out, they go out front of the parentheses, and what's left in the parentheses is what's left over when you factor out that greatest common factor. So the 4x squared plus x, we factor out an x, we're left with 4x plus 1. For the 12x plus 3, we factored out a positive 3, so that goes next, and we have 4x plus 1 left over inside those parentheses. From here, My two parentheses are the same, so I'm going to rewrite the 4x plus 1 one time, and then I'm going to make another set of parentheses with the x and the positive 3. This is my answer. This 4x plus 1 times x plus 3. For example B, we have 3x squared minus 7x plus 2. So we are going to take the first term, that a, which is 3, multiply it with our c term, which is 2. We get 6. That 6 is positive. The term that we're replacing within the trinomial that we started with is the negative 7x. So what are the factors of 6 that add up to be a negative 7? Well, we have 1 and negative 6, which gives us negative 7. So we're going to attach the negative 1 to an x and the negative 6 to an x and replace the negative 7x with the negative x minus 6x. So this is turning into 3x squared minus x minus 6x plus 2. So again, we just rewrote this with switching out that negative 7x for the negative 1 and the negative 6 with an x attached to them. From here, since we have our 4 terms, we are going to factor by grouping. The first set of parentheses, we have 3x squared minus x. We will factor out an x. The second set of parentheses, we have a negative 6x and a positive 2. Now, the first set of parentheses, our first term is positive, which means the first term in the second set of parentheses should be positive as well. So that negative 6, we're going to factor out a negative from in order to turn it to a positive, which will then turn the 2 into a positive or a negative as well. The 6 and the 2 have a common factor of 2, so we'll factor out a negative 2 from the second set of parentheses. This is going to leave us with x times 3x minus 1 minus 2 times 3x minus 1. Check to see that your parentheses are the same. They are. So we have 3x minus 1 as one set of parentheses, and then we form another with the x and the minus 2 to give us 3x minus 1 times x minus 2. With example C, we're given 14x squared plus 31x plus 15. You do not have any common factors here between these 3 terms. So we'll start this one by multiplying the 14 and the 15. The 14, let's do this in the right color. The 14 times the 15 gives us 210. Off the top of your head, I do not expect you to know the factors of 210. So let's find the factors. We have 1 and 210. We know that's not going to work. 2 and 105. 3 and 70. 210 divided by 4, no. 210 divided by 5, and 5 goes into 24 times, 1 left over, so 5 goes into 2 times, okay. From here, 6 does not go into it evenly, 7 goes into it 30 times, right? Hold on, 210 divided by 6 is 35. So let's do that. 6 and 35. We then have 210 divided by 7, which gives us 30. 210 divided by 8 does not give us a whole number. 210 divided by 9 does not. Divided by 10 is 21. So 10 and 21. We'll realize that we're looking for a 31, and this 10 plus 21 gives us that 31. So we're going to use the 10x plus 21x when we rewrite this. So it's going to be 14x squared plus 10x plus 21x plus 15. We have 4 terms, factor by grouping. With the first set of parentheses, both terms have an x, so you'll factor out an x. They're both divisible by 2 as well, so factor out a 2x. For the second set of parentheses, we have 21x and 15. They're both divisible by 3, so factor out a 3 from there. So this is going to leave us with 2x times what's left over, 7x plus 5. The 3 factors out, it's positive, so it goes plus 3 times 21x divided by 3 is 7x, and 15 divided by 3 is a positive 5. Your two sets of parentheses are the same, so rewrite the 7x plus 5 once and form another set with the 2x and the positive 3. So this gives us 7x plus 5 times 2x plus 3. For example D, we're given 2x squared minus 7x plus 5. So we're going to multiply the 2 and the 5. We get 10. We want to find the factors of 10 that add up to be a negative 7. Well, if we have a negative 2 and a negative 5, we get negative 7. So we're going to attach x's to those and replace the negative 7x with them. So this is going to turn into 2x squared minus 2x minus 5x plus 5. We have 4 terms, so we'll factor by grouping. We're going to factor out a 2x from the first set of parentheses and a negative 5 from the second. The 2x goes out front. What's left over is just x minus 1. The negative 5 goes out front. What's left over is just x minus 1. Our two sets of parentheses are the same, so we're going to rewrite the x minus 1 once and form another set of parentheses with the 2x and the negative 5. So we have x minus 1 times 2x minus 5. For example E, we have 3x squared minus 14x plus 8. So we're going to take the 3 and multiply it with the 8. We get 24. The factors of 24 that can replace the negative 14 are negative 2 and negative 12. We'll put x's on both of those terms and replace it in the expression with or replace the negative 14x with them. So it's going to be 3x squared minus 2x minus 12x plus 8. We have our 4 terms, so we'll factor by grouping. We're going to factor out an x from the first set of parentheses, factor out a negative 4 from the second. So this becomes x times 3x minus 2 minus 4 times 3x minus 2. Your two sets of parentheses are the same, so we're going to have 3x minus 2 times x minus 4. For example 3, we are factoring when a times c is negative. So if we look at example A, we have 2x squared minus 5x minus 7. We're going to do the 2 times the negative 7. We get negative 14. From here, you want to find the factors of negative 14 that add up to be a negative 5. If we have a positive 2 and a negative 7, that gives us negative 5. So we'll replace that negative 5x with the 2x minus 7x. So we're going to have 2x squared plus 2x minus 7x minus 7. Again, 4 terms, factor by grouping. We're going to factor out a 2x from the first set of parentheses. We're going to factor out a negative 7 from the second set of parentheses. So this is giving us 2x times x plus 1 minus 7 times x plus 1. Your two sets of parentheses are the same, so we have x plus 1 times 2x minus 7. For example B, we have 4x squared minus 19x minus 5. So we'll take the 4, multiply it by the negative 5, we get negative 20. Your factors of negative 20 that add up to be a negative 19 are 1 and negative 20. So if we attach x's to those and replace them in our expression, we're going to have 4x squared plus x minus 20x minus 5. 4 terms means factor by grouping. So we'll factor out an x from the first set, and we'll factor out a negative 5 from the second. So this is x times 4x plus 1 minus 5 times 4x plus 1. Those two parentheses are the same. So we have 4x plus 1 times x minus 5. For example C, we have 6x squared plus x minus 12. So we're going to take the 6, multiply it by the negative 12. We get negative 72. We want the factors of negative 72 that are going to add up to be a positive 1. This is going to give us a negative 8 and a positive 9. We attach x's with those. We replace it in the expression. So that gives us 6x squared minus 8x plus 9x minus 12. Parentheses are on the first two, parentheses are on the last two. Factor out a 2x from the first set of parentheses, factor out a 3 from the second. This leaves us with 2x times 3x minus 4 plus 3 times 3x minus 4. Your two parentheses are the same, so this leaves us with 3x minus 4 times 2x plus 3. For example, for A, it tells us to factor negative 4x squared minus 8x plus 5. With these, our A term is negative, and we do not want to work with a negative A term, so we are going to first factor out a negative 1 unless we have another greatest common factor from all three of these terms. So first thing we're going to do is factor out a negative 1. That's going to change the sign on every term. Remember, whatever you factor out has to go in front, and whatever's left over goes in parentheses. So if we change the sign on all of these, we're going to have 4x squared plus 8x minus 5 in those parentheses. From here, we're going to factor by realizing that our A is something other than 1. So remember what we did prior to this. If our A is not 1, we multiply A and C, find the factors of A times C that add up to be that B term, replace the B term with those two factors along with the variable, and factor by grouping. So 4 times negative 5 gives us negative 20. We want the factors of negative 20 that add up to be a positive 8. If we had a negative 2 and a positive 10, we can get negative 20 by multiplying them and positive 8 by adding them. We will use that negative 2x and that 10x and replace the 8x with those two terms. So this is going to give us negative 1 times 4x squared minus 2x plus 10x minus 5. You'll see that I put brackets on this instead of parentheses because I'm going to factor by grouping, and when I factor by grouping, I'm going to use parentheses. So by factoring by grouping, I'm going to put a set of parentheses on the first two terms and a set of parentheses on the last two terms. The 4x squared minus 2x goes in parentheses, and the 10x minus 5 goes in parentheses. From the first set of parentheses, I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor, which in this case is 2x. From the second set of parentheses, I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor, which in this case is a positive 5. From here, this is going to leave us with negative 1 times 2x times 2x minus 1 plus 5 times 2x minus 1. We look at those two sets of parentheses inside the brackets. They are identical to one another, which means we are going to rewrite that 2x minus 1 one time and form another set of parentheses with the 2x and the positive 5. So this gives us negative 1 times 2x minus 1 times 2x plus 5. For example B, we are given negative 2y squared minus 5y minus 3. Again, our A term is negative, so we will start this one by factoring out a negative 1. That negative 1 is going to go in front of whatever's left over when we switch the signs on all of these terms. So this is going to be negative 1 times 2y squared plus 5y plus 3. We have an A other than 1, so let's multiply the 2 times the 3, we get 6. From here, we want the factors of 6 that add up to be a positive 5. If we have a 2 plus 3, we get positive 5. If we did 2 times 3, we get the positive 6. So we'll use 2x plus 3x to replace the 2y plus 3y to replace the 5y with. So this is going to give us negative 1 times 2y squared plus 2y plus 3y plus 3. We're going to put parentheses around the first two terms, put parentheses around the last two terms because we have 4 terms. We're going to factor out a 2y from the first set of parentheses. We're going to factor out a 3 from the second set of parentheses. This is going to leave us with negative 1 times 2y times y plus 1 plus 3 times y plus 1. Our two sets of parentheses are the same, so we're going to have negative 1 times y plus 1 times 2y plus 3. All right, so for example C, we are given negative 5m squared plus 6m minus 1. So again, we are going to factor out a negative 1 to give ourselves negative 1 times 5m squared minus 6m plus 1. We are going to multiply the 5 and the 1. We get positive 6. The factors of positive 6 that add up to be a negative, oh my goodness, 5 times 1 is 5, not 6. The factors of 5 that add up to be a negative 6 are negative 1 and negative 5. So this is going to be rewritten as negative 1 times 5m squared minus m minus 5m plus 1. From here, we are going to factor by grouping on the inside of those brackets. We factor out an m from the first set of parentheses. We factor out a negative 1 from the second. So this is giving us negative 1 times m times 5m minus 1 times 5m minus 1. So from here, your two sets of parentheses are identical to one another. So this just gives us a negative 1 times 5m minus 1 times m minus 1. For our last one, example D, we have negative 3x squared minus x plus 2. Again, we're going to start this one by factoring out a negative 1. This leaves us with negative 1 times 3x squared plus x minus 2. From here, you want to multiply 3 times negative 2. We get negative 6. The factors of negative 6 that add up to be a positive 1 are negative 2 and positive 3. So we are going to rewrite this as negative 1 times 3x squared minus 2x plus 3x minus 2. We have 4 terms inside those brackets, so we factor by grouping. We're going to factor out an x from the first set of parentheses, and we'll factor out a positive 1 from the second. So again, we rewrite as negative 1 times x times 3x minus 2 plus 1 times 3x minus 2. Our two sets of parentheses are the same. So we have negative 1 times 3x minus 2 times x plus 1.